Hey guys, it is Friday. Time for the end of the week wrap up. I know we've been slacking on the wrap up. We've been crazy busy just trying to keep up with everything. There's only two of us here. It's me and my son. So uh, it's a little tough sometimes to do some videos, but I'm going to try and catch you up on everything that's going on. This 55 T-Bird, this gentleman's been waiting over a year to get it in. And with the Camaro even, we finally got a little space to get him in the door. This particular car, he was at a car show. It's a beautiful car. He was at a car show. Leaving the car show, a young kid did late for work, not paying attention, came around the corner. You can see the fender here. He smashed right into the corner of the fender and pretty well stuffed it back. So we're going to replace the fender, and while it's here, we're going to do a paint job. But one of the things that's good about this car is it gives me an opportunity to educate you guys a little bit on some of the things that we look at before we do a paint job. So one of the things that give you a really good finish, no ripples and things of that nature, is the fact that you don't have a lot of material in the car. This particular car has had 7 paint jobs. Now I sanded out a little ring here so you could really see it, but there are 7 different colors throughout there. So that's entirely too much paint to paint over. So we're going to have to strip the car. But I wanted to educate you on what happens. So let's say you had just sanded out an area that was a chip. For example, there's some chips here. If you had sanded a chip, so you feathered out the paint, and then you would coat it with primer, each one of those little rings would show up, it would shrink or swell because each one of these layers of paint has a different hardness. When I say hardness, I mean like the lower color here. When the hot material goes over it, it sinks into that material, and what will happen is it'll stay moist and wet. And then when you put your top coat over it, it seals over. It makes like a skin, like a piece of saran wrap, and it doesn't allow the fumes, the outgas, to come out of that. So all these layers underneath stay wet, and it's evident when you pull some paint off, and it's still rubbery. This car was last painted in 2009, and you still have a real rubbery paint surface. So there's way too much paint on here. Another thing we look at is from the factory, they leaded the seams. You can see here where the front panel and the fender meet. And we have to remove all that lead in order to replace that panel. But typically, it's very difficult to see in a camera. Any place that there's a lead seam, it shows a very rough and ripply look, and you can see it shrinking. So what we tend to do is we'll go through and we'll wash the lead out of that seam. And probably next week, I'll do a little video showing you how to do that. But you need to remove that lead. Today's products are far superior to lead. Much harder. They don't shrink. They don't swell. They don't outgas. They don't do any of the things that lead's famous for causing problems with. So that'll be removed, and we'll show you that later. But this is a 55 that we just brought in. So we're just getting started on that. And then, of course, we've had some crazy issues. Our lift, the hydraulics went out on one of the pistons. I've been waiting almost 2 weeks now for the hydraulic guy to get here and change that piston. As soon as that's repaired, that 48 Willys we have, we're going to take the body off it and finish up the frame on that one as well. And then in here, not to be forgotten about, we have the old Barracuda. So we're going to get back going on this. And Philip started wet sanding the fenders and the hood and trying to get all that stuff sanded, wet sanded and buffed so we can go ahead and get those panels on the car. And then once all these panels are mounted onto the car, the owner, his name's John Cleveland, he wants to narrow the bumpers and tuck them up tight to the body, gives it a better look. And they're going to be painted. So the whole car is going to be black. All the chrome is going to be painted black and so on. So we're making a little headway on that. And then we got Bob's truck. We've got it up in the air, removed all the suspension, getting ready for the rafter liner. Under the cab and the frame from the cab forward is all done. That's all completed. Junior spent the better part of a week under there scuffing. You can see it up here in the front. So what we'll do is we get all that prepped out and ready, and then we'll bag it with some plastic bags and seal it up basically so no paint can get on it, and then we'll block the body and we'll get the body done. But it's a pretty tedious job when you start getting into things like the suspension, getting them all cleaned up and pull everything out of it. It's kind of tough, but we're getting there. The frame's all pretty well prepped. So from the cab back, will be Raptor linered. The suspension front and rear will be painted in a satin black, and then the fenders will be car color. I'm not going to tell you what that color is just yet. You're going to have to stay tuned. We have this Studebaker pickup here. We've been doing little bits and pieces of metal work on it. Replaced the bottom of the door, cab corners, end of the fender, bottom of the fender. We put power windows in it. And up here in the front, had some rather ugly aprons, so we built new steel aprons inside and started to build a panel to cover the firewall. The firewall on these, the back of the dash kind of pretty much visible. You can see the wiring harness and everything. So these covers are designed to basically hide all that, give us a more smooth finish. We're going to remove all these bolts that he's got in here. We're going to weld those up in solid and finish it off so that can be, kind of slicked out. The bed, we did a back panel and end caps on this back here. There's a removable taillight panel and capped the ends. So that's taken shape. And then we have this Chevelle in. That belongs to Joe Rapoli. Just getting started on this. He's shaving the drip rails. Going to do some odds and ends of metal work. Not a lot. Most of it was done. Somebody had recently put quarter panels on it, and a very nice job. And we're just going to go through and finish up the metal work on it and get it body worked, block it a couple times, and we'll do some paint work on this one. It's going to be a two-tone. It should be pretty interesting. So we're on that and making some good headway on that. And then we have my panel truck inside. Going to start working on that in the evenings and the weekends. And I'm not going to tell you too much about that, but I will show you very soon here where we're going with that. That'll be a neat project to watch. But all in all, we're slammed busy. We're making really good progress on all the projects. And you stay tuned with us here, and we'll try and keep you up to breast every week. And then during the week, if I get the opportunity, I'll put a little video out there to get you kind of accustomed to where we're at. Meanwhile, you guys have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week.